How would you characterize the following person? He's or she is utterly uninterested in the question of whether God exists, but he or she considers himself or herself deeply spiritual. How do you characterize that kind of a person?
Well, I consider myself deeply spiritual in one sense, in the same sense that perhaps Carl Sagan would have done, where I feel deeply moved in a poetic way by the sight of the Milky Way, by contemplation of the size of the universe, by contemplation of the immense span of geological time, by looking down a microscope at a single cell and seeing the intricate structure of a single cell and then reflecting that that cell is multiplied up trillions of times in my own body.
That's not the spirituality I'm thinking of.
Well, it's the spirituality I'm thinking of.
And it's a better spirituality. I've said this again publicly too. I think one of the big misunderstandings and abuses of the discussion of science is that science takes away spirituality, which is really awe and wonder and a sense of something bigger than oneself. But the stuff that's bigger than oneself doesn't have to be unreal. It can be real. And being part of an amazing cosmos, as I like to say, being completely insignificant is uplifting and can be a spiritual experience. And every time like Richard, every time I look at a Hubble Space Telescope picture, it's spiritually uplifting. The spirituality of science is better than the spirituality of religion because it's real. But I will say that I think that the person you're describing, and there's many of them, is a new breed of people because more and more people are becoming disillusioned by organized religion because of information, of realizing how silly it is, ultimately. But they don't want to lose what they're getting from organized religion. So they transfer to this concept of spirituality, a oneness with the universe, and I think that people like that. We're hardwired, I think, to want that. And there are many things that religion provides that are hardwired for. But the key thing for me is, sure, we recognize that religion provides things, consolation, community. But the key thing is, it doesn't have to be religion that provides those things.
Did I hear you just say we are hardwired to find spiritual meaning in life?
I think we're certainly. Yeah, I think we are. There's evolutionary advantages, I think.
So then the quest for God or a belief in God is not illogical at all.
No, I mean, you just said to me, that's not the kind of spirituality I'm interested in. What kind of spirituality are you interested in?
Well, I was thinking not so much the spirit, and I appreciate your position. I understand the spirituality you just described, where your part in the cosmos.
I mean, I wrote a little book about it called Unweaving the Rainbow.
I understand. I understand. But I guess I was thinking about people don't feel a need. People may not feel a need to go into a house of worship, and yet they somehow still have a connection to the morality that comes out of religion.
But morality is another matter.
Okay. Yeah, but you just jumped in. You said it wasn't irrational. The point is, just because we're hardwired to want to do something doesn't make it rational. We're hardwired to do a lot of things that aren't rational. We were hardwired to be xenophobic in some ways. It's not clear love is rational, and so there's a lot of aspects of being human that don't relate to being rational, and understanding that is important if we want to deal with the real world and try and make the world a better place.
So science can be spiritual.
You're playing with words. I mean,
I'm asking questions. I'm really not playing.
I mean, it depends what do you mean. If you mean something supernatural, no. If you mean what Lawrence just called awe and wonder, or what Carl Sagan would have called awe and wonder, yes, certainly.
And we should celebrate that.
Yes.
That's the point. I mean, people think science takes away. I mean, we're not the first ones to say this, because as Richard said, Carl Sagan said it, Richard Feynman, who's obviously I'm a huge fan of, as a famous physicist, talked about the fact that understanding how a rainbow works doesn't make it less beautiful. It makes it more beautiful. But somehow people get the sense that science is cold, hard facts, and therefore boring, and also dehumanizing. And I think my goal, and I believe Richard's goal, is to disabuse people of that misconception. Science is wonderful. It's fun, it's exciting, and it's as enjoyable and pleasing to understand as listening to a sonnet or listening to a beautiful piece of music.
Well, let's follow up on that. Describe for me the most recent moment you had in your scientific life where you had, boy, I almost said it, what a religious person would call a come-to-Jesus moment, where you had a kind of a...
poetic moment.
Yeah, poetic, spiritual, call it what you will, moment that really gave you that chill up your spine.
Okay, two experiences, neither of them to do with biology, both to do with physics. I visited the CERN Atomic Energy Establishment in
The Large Hadron Collider.
the Large Hadron Collider, and went down underground and saw this gigantic piece of cooperative human endeavor designed to understand the very fabric of the universe. I was literally moved to tears by that experience. Also moved to tears on a recent visit to a large telescope on the island of Hawaii, and again see this great staring instrument staring up at the sky and reaching out. This is the human species at its finest, reaching out to the distant outposts of the universe and gathering information and bringing it back and analyzing it and understanding it. Again, I was moved to tears by that experience.
Genuinely to tears?
A lump in the throat.
What do you think? How come?
Because I'm spiritual in the sense that I mean, because I have a poetic sensibility which is aroused by science and by the poetry of reality, which is what science is.
And, you know, I think that the point of Richard's experiences, and he just put it beautifully, is that, you know, people think there's a dichotomy, a separation between science and the other aspects of our culture. We celebrate science, in my opinion, too much because of technology. Of course, science is responsible for the technology that's made this program possible and made our lives generally better. We live longer because of science. All of that those are byproducts of science. But the ideas of science, in my mind, are what are so amazing, and they are just as remarkable as the best symphonies and Shakespeare plays. They do the same thing. They force us to reassess our place in the cosmos. They force us to reassess our views of ourselves, which is really what you get when you see a wonderful bit of drama. You get a new perspective of yourself.
Okay,
yeah, go on.
Here's where I'm going to do the okay, but. He's a much more, and I'm not saying this to be complimentary or what's the opposite? Mm-hmm. Critical of either one of you in saying this. You're a more apparently serious guy than you. You've got a lot more Mel Brooks and Woody Allen going through your veins, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But when I was earlier, my teachers thought I wouldn't be a good student because I like to joke a lot. Yeah.
So are you capable of experiencing that same kind of moment he just described to the point where you are moved almost to tears by something you see?
I don't know if I'd probably get moved to laughter more than tears. But,
that's what I'm thinking.
But I think I have just as strong an emotional response. But these things happen to me all the time. In some ways, you know, you couldn't continue to be a scientist as I am without that kind of reinforcement, because as we say in the movie, it's hard work. And a lot of times you're leading nowhere. You're working for a long time on something and getting nowhere. But the reinforcement you get, when I look at, to take the example I gave you, the Hubble Space Telescope picture of distant galaxies, and think that some of them are 10 billion light years away. That meant the light was emitted 5 billion years before our sun formed. And since most stars last 5 to 10 billion years, that means most of the stars in that picture don't even exist anymore. And if there were civilizations around those stars, they're long gone. And when they get a picture of us, if there's civilizations just emerging now, by the time they see the Milky Way galaxy, we'll all be long gone. And those kind of things do amaze me. I wrote a book called Atom, which is the biography of an individual atom. And to me, one of the most poetic things... ATOM, yeah, as I like to say. In the beginning, there were no Adams or Eves. But the fact that every atom in our bodies was once inside a star that exploded, and maybe different stars, the atoms in your left hand and the ones in your right hand, to me is incredible poetry. It means you're stardust. It means we are intimately connected to the cosmos. They've all experienced the most violent explosion in nature, every single atom in your body, and they couldn't be in your body if the stars didn't explode in the first place, because all the elements that make you up were made in those stars. God, that does move me, and I don't know, maybe it doesn't move me to tears, maybe it moves me to excitement of a different sort.